Hello and welcome to another Vroom Room. I am Amy E. Reichert. I'm here with my fabulous co-host Heather Webb and our amazing fellow tall poppy Sonali Dave, and she's also a fabulous friend of the show.
She's also she's almost like she's kind of one of our surrogate hosts, I think.
Yes,
I like the sound of that. Yes. so all the glory, none of the work. That's always great.
Yes. Well, there might be coming a time we can just pass it to you. See, you got to be careful if you keep showing up.
Look at the time.
Oops, gotta go. And then our other fabulous guest is Barbara O'Neill, who is a best-selling and award-winning author. Her most recent book is Write My Name Across the Sky. And when I was reading her bio, I was very intrigued by the fact that you are a long-distance walker.
Yeah.
Seems very attainable, yet also tiring.
Well, I mean, I'm never going to be a runner, which is what my husband is. So, running is out of the question. So walking long distances feels like sort of tough, but not. Yeah.
But you plan on walking across England, which I find very impressive.
Oh, no, there is this great walk across England, the coast to coast, that, it's a pretty challenging walk, and it takes like 21 days, and that's really pushing it because you're walking 10 miles a day, 15 miles a day. So you really have to train. Unfortunately, I was going to do it right at the start of COVID, and everything has been kicked aside. But, I think it's going to be beautiful when I finally get to do it.
I kind of want to hitch a ride. But you have to tell us why England, Barbara.
I actually love the landscape in England. It's just so beautiful. The weather is beautiful. The landscape is beautiful. All of those, they have all these walkways, or I forget what they call them, but you have the right of way. That's what it is. You can walk across people's property. It's like these ancient medieval through lines that pretty much sheep created back in the 5th century or something. So, it's really beautiful and wonderful. And I don't know. I love England.
I'll go.
And your fiance,
my fiance,
is also English, is he not?
He is British. She is. No, he would actually say he was English. Somebody asked him today if he was British. He said English. He is from Kent, but he does not love England as much as I do, actually.
Isn't that funny how that happens?
Yeah, he says it's a cold, wet, miserable country.
Which is how he ended up in beautiful, sunny Colorado.
Right. Yeah. Where the sun shines 300 days a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous.
I love Colorado as well. Yeah.
You can get sick of sunshine, though. I'm telling you, you really can. People say, "Oh, I would never," but you would.
But no, I do here, and I don't have that many days. I would be really happy in Seattle.
Yeah. Hold on, Amy, you get sick of sunshine in Wisconsin.
I do. Okay. We have 10 days of sunshine in a row, and this is the worst. I hate it.
I'm flabbergasted and aghast. But I will say I grew up in Mumbai, which is 365 days almost of sunshine. And I remember growing up reading British literature, a lot of it. And they always have the word grey when they describe days.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what they were talking about until I was 23 when I moved to this country, and I moved to Michigan. And come November, I was like, oh, so this is what they were talking about. And now I've had more gray days than I ever wanted in my life. But I literally was like, a gray day? Like, what does that mean?
Now you know.
Yeah, England, come to New England. New England has its fair share of gray days.
Gray days, yeah. We have like dark, stormy skies in the monsoon, but it lasts for as long as the rain lasts, and then the sun breaks through. So it's still not a gray day technically. It's it was because it's gray. I think goes with the cold too. So absolutely, I think that your soon-to-be husband is so right.
But there's something so cozy about waking up and it's a cloudy, drizzly morning. I write so well on those days.
I do too. The
They're
winter,
amazing.
the fall and the winter here in New England is when I
Right.
get most of my work done.
Yes.
Spring,
Yes.
late spring and summer is very difficult because it's so exquisitely beautiful here, and I just want to be outside or on the beach or
Right.
Yeah.
I write well on the beach. I really, really do.
Not me. I want to be reading. Totally want to be reading. Well, this is boding well. We are going to have lots of little side conversations, and I love it. But we should talk about our Poppy news before we get to bars.
Wait, did you introduce Sonali properly? Because I kind of cut it off and gushed about
I
her.
thought I did. I said she's a fellow tall Poppy and friend of the show.
All right.
Future potential co-host.
And we know Sonali on Bloom. Okay.
Yes.
So Poppy news.
Poppy news.
Poppy news. We don't have a ton, but I will say that Hank Felipe Ryan, who tends to kick a lot of butt if you don't know her, she is a multi-award-winning reporter in Boston.
Emmy award-winning.
Emmy award. I think she has like 37 Emmys or some insane number.
Yeah.
And she also writes award-winning suspense. Agatha Award and Mary Higgins Clark Award-winning. And she's going to be hosting BoucherCon online this year. It's supposed to be in New Orleans, but they're going to move to online. And then she also got 2-starred reviews from Kirkus and Publishers Weekly. So go Hank.
Yay.
And that is wasn't that all of our news? I think it was.
I was going to throw out that this is the last day for my Goodreads giveaway, but
throw it out.
Good.
So hold on. I have one other thing here because I'm looking here. Susan Meisner says, it's probably too late to tell you, but the last year of the war was named on one of the 14 best books about brave World War II women.
Awesome.
Wow.
So good for her. And then Tiff Marcello and Priscilla Oliveras Kissinger will be on a panel on Saturday for Bookstore Romance Day, which is really cool, actually. I didn't know that was a thing.
That's a thing. Yeah. And I'll be on 2 of those too. And I probably should have put that in when you requested it. But yeah. So
where will you be, Sonali? What bookstore are you working with?
So at 11 a.m. CST, Chicago time, Central Time, I'll be, I think, on Astoria, and at 4 p.m. East City, I think. I'll put it up in the comments. There's 2, and they're really great.
Great, awesome. So that's it. That's it for Poppy News. So. Should we talk about books that we're reading? We always like to share the love for, others. So Barbara, I know you're reading because you're always reading. What
I'm always reading. And I just read something that isn't out yet. I think it's out in the fall. I should have double checked, but it's Darling Girl by Liz Mikulski. And I absolutely loved it. I thought it's a retelling of the Peter Pan story. It's kind of dark and gritty, and it takes some really interesting turns. And it is set in England, which I loved. And it was absolutely wonderful. Darling Girl is the name of the book.
That's
Darling Girl.
I already wrote it down, and I'm going to be reading that when that comes out.
Yeah. And I actually happen to have a very early read of Darling Girl as well, as I'm a freelance editor. And so I am very excited about this book. Liz has worked her tail off, and she's talented, and I'm excited that you loved it too, Barbara. So there's
I love her too. So
I do too.
I mean, so Liz, this is really great.
She doesn't have a cover. You must have had you have a galley, like a printed galley.
It's not a printed galley. It's I read everything online by
like an e-art. So, okay. I'm excited to see what they do with the cover. I
am too.
It'll be cool. Yeah. What about you, Sonali? What are you reading?
So I'm just thinking about Peter Pan. Is she Tinkerbell? Is it like what is? It's just it's a gender swap. Peter Pan?
No, it's actually quite a dark retelling. Imagine that Peter Pan is not the good guy that we always thought of him as. That's as much as I'm really willing to say at the moment.
So more Pied Pipery almost. But anyway,
So that tracks for me because I've always thought Peter Pan's kind of a dick.
Yeah, kind of creepy, right?
Yeah, that whole thing is creepy.
It's a dark and creepy retelling, and
I love it.
And not in a like a gothic or horror way, but in a just in a you think you know people way, but you don't.
I mean, it's like a dark fairy tale, right? I mean, and that's what we love. It's not so dark that you want to like turn the lights on, but you know, a real fairy tale.
I feel like based on only the things you've said that it's kind of like the book You by Caroline Kepnes and Peter Pan mixed. But I don't know. Like
I don't know the book You.
I think You was very, very, very dark.
Not that dark.
He was a creepy. That was a creepy book. Yeah. I mean, creepy in a good way, but it was really dark and scary.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, Sonali, what are you reading?
There's a book that came out this past week, and it's a story of two generations of three women from two generations that's set in New York City in this incredible apartment. And it is some of the most gorgeous writing and character development by this author named Barbara O'Neill.
Would this be the cover?
I think that's the cover. Yes, isn't that some cover? Oh my gosh, it's yeah, and I'm writing a story about three generations of women, and if you read Barbara, then you kind of go into any writing exercise chewing your nails because it's such a high bar.
Oh, hey,
I do read Barbara. I do read Barbara.
Yes. So no, it's
really celebrated.
You are celebrated, my friend. But it's truly, I think, just really different women than I've read in women's fiction in a while. Especially Gloria, who is in her 70s, Barbara.
Yeah, she's 74.
That's really refreshing, honestly. I get a little tired of the same 20-year-old protagonists.
And she isn't, you read a lot of the grandmas who are salty and the whole vinegar and, piss and vinegar. But she's an Instagram influencer and a woman very much comfortable with her sexuality and, and all of that. Just really, really lovely. And yeah, in that apartment, I mean, I would claw out eyes to get to step into that apartment. And
yeah,
it's just it's another character in the book, and it's just such a fabulous read. So
Barbara, did you set out to create this sort of dreamy landscape in terms of the apartment in New York, or?
I did want to have a really great apartment. I watched Green Card years ago, and I was hooked on that apartment forever with the greenhouse and the rooftop and all of that. And I'm always, when I'm walking, anywhere in the city, I'm like, could it be there? Because it exists somewhere, right?
Oh yeah.
I would love to see it in person. And I sort of like that it has this crappy little kitchen and the rest of it. So I mean, that's kind of where that came from, just wanting to have an apartment like that someday, and my love of Green Card.
And something about rooftops in New York City that is just so vivid and so like endless. And I think, Barbara, you yourself, with your greenhouse, I kind of could see you there. Like in my head, that's your greenhouse in that apartment. And so there's, so much.
Well, certainly that did influence it because, the greenhouse has been pretty central for the last couple of years.
I've been watching it during the pandemic. I've been following your greenhouse adventure.
Really, what good timing, right? I got it built like in March, and then everything fell apart. And so I had like something to do. It was really good. And unfortunately, it had some bad times during the remodel.
So people watching who don't know, Barbara has a wonderful green thumb, and she had this greenhouse built, or you built it, or you had, I don't know, you and Neil built it. Yeah. And so she raises all these gorgeous plants, and it's kind of worked out during the pandemic to have, like you said, this hobby.
Yeah.
I am so envious of people who find comfort in that and joy in that, because I want to be that kind of person, but I hate it so much.
Yeah.
I mean, either you love it or you don't. My fiance will do anything to get out of gardening. I mean, anything.
That's me. You know what's weird with me is I used to love it, even in my parents' little, like growing up, as a young girl in a Mumbai apartment. I used to, have pots and a little potted garden, and then when my kids were little, I put in an entire landscape in our Michigan house, and now it just makes me sick to my stomach. I think I just kind of exhausted that um, just that piece of me. I just right. I'm like you, and like your husband. I will do anything. I will pay people good money if they just come and pull some weeds.
I'm currently paying my daughter a lot of money to weed my garden.
Oh, I hired some gardeners a couple of years ago because it is a lot. I mean, weeding is the not fun part of gardening.
No, it's the worst. It's the worst.
It's the worst one, but it makes it taints everything. It's like this sickness that taints gardening. It's like I would love to garden if there were no weeds.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
That's funny.
All right, Heather, what are you reading?
Okay, so I am reading. I just got this, so I haven't even started it yet, but I'm excited to read it. It's The Last Dance of the Debutante by Julia Kelly.
Cover.
And speaking
Beautiful.
of gardens, Barbara, her last book was called
I have that book
The Last Garden
on my nightstand. I do. I mean, it's in the to be read pile. When I said Julia Kelly, I know The Last Garden or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah,
the
it's a
title.
beautiful cover, and she actually I chatted with her last week on her show, and she her mother I think is English, so she's dual citizenship and now lives in England full time and does all this beautiful gardening. And then she wrote that book about gardening, since we're talking about that. But anyway, so The Last Dance of the Debutante is kind of the sort of the very last vestiges of the coming out time before the Queen in England. And of course, you have this saucy debutante who really doesn't want anything to do with it. You can tell even by her body language on that cover that shit is going to go down. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this book. But it's a beautiful cover, and I'm excited to read it. I love a good debutante story. So, what about you, Amy? What are you digging into?
So part of I went to bookstores and bought way too many books stash. Is The Book Charmer by Karen Hawkins, which I feel like this is it's
a great cover.
Cover.
Yeah, it's cozy.
It is. It's cozy. You've got a chair and a stack of books, but there's like these little gold sparkles on it.
Oh.
And I dig that because it is not only about books and a librarian and a small town, but the magic in books. So there's a little bit of magical realism going through it. So
I'm writing this down. It sounds like a fun read.
And the second one, I think, in this series came out the same day as in Sense and Sensibility. So it just came out, and it's called The Cup of Blessings or The Cup of Longings. Or I'm going to pull it up, but yeah. So the second one is out, which I started and is really lovely because it's these sisters who have powers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not far into it. I just sort of picked it up because it's kind of next in the pile. But yeah, it looks amazing and right up my alley because I love things with just a little bit of magic in them.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Those are fun, or a lot of magic. I'm cool with a lot.
So Barbara, we touched upon your new book a little bit, but can you talk a little bit more in detail? Write My Name Across the Sky. What's it about? And then we'd love to hear some fun little anecdote or something behind the scenes that you haven't shared elsewhere.
Okay, something I haven't shared. Well,
you may have shared, but something fun.
Okay. The story is about the 74-year-old Instagram influencer who finds herself in a little bit of trouble from some things she did in her past. And she has to get her nieces to help her get out of it, and they kind of come together. They all have things that they're working on. One is a failed musician. One is a game designer who's really got some anger issues and needs to work them out. And the three of them try to get things worked out, and there's drama and adventure and trouble.
And a gorgeous cover. I'm so excited about that cover.
That cover is really great. And there was an Instagrammer, speaking of an Instagram influencer, she painted like the whole background and then put the book in front of it. It's one of the best Instagram pictures I've ever seen. I mean, it's just amazing.
It's just lovely.
I saw that. I was amazed by that.
Yeah, she did. I mean, it's really beautiful. The creativity that comes out is just crazy. So I guess one of the things I would say about this book is that I went to New York City for the RWA conference, whenever that was, 2018, right? The last
I met you there.
We were there.
We sat on a rooftop and had wine. Yes.
And it's shocking that we did that. And I went to the Leonard Cohen exhibit at the National Jewish Museum. I can't remember if that's exactly the right name, but it's on the Upper East Side. And it was just this beautiful thing. We went with a couple of friends, and there was something about watching Leonard Cohen sing his songs in giant screens over the course of his life. So he's like 28, and then he's 30, and then he's like 80, singing the same song that just sort of moved me in this really deep way. And there's nothing about Leonard Cohen in the book at all, but for some reason the whole book just unfurled at that exhibit. It was great. And of course we were walking around downtown or up in the Upper East Side, Upper West Side, and just looking at everything. So came together.
That was a fun conference, if I remember.
It was a fun conference.
So that's really cool that you had that huge inspiration there.
Yeah.
And actually, it kind of reminds me of, have you seen all the Van Gogh?
Yes.
Immersive exhibits. We were actually talking about that the other day, right, Barbara? Where I'm kind of obsessed with Van Gogh. And I think I've never stood in front of a Van Gogh painting, an original, and been able to stop sobbing. Like there's just something that reaches in. And I feel my daughter wanted to go to the one in Chicago, and I just feel like I don't know if I want to taint it with technology, and I know I should get out of that and go do it. But yeah, I just feel like that connection to the strokes, I just don't want to break that. I don't know.
Let me tell you something. I was in New York 3 weeks ago, and I went to the one sort of in Lower Manhattan, and I have to tell you, same thing. I've seen a lot of the originals in Paris at the Musée d'Orsay and at the Louvre and in other places, and I love them, and I love Van Gogh. But so I walked in, and I felt like, okay, they had all these just sort of stenciled mounts on the wall where they explained what the paintings were and who he was, and I was like, And then you sort of walk through that into this big room, and all of a sudden, I was riveted. It's a massive room. It's kind of almost like a big stadium room, and they have all these chairs that you can lean back in and look up, and there's projections everywhere. So they project his work, but it's not just a piece that moves. It tells a story. So it starts with one of his pieces, and then there are elements of each artwork that move within the painting. So it's almost like they use technology to make the people inside the painting move, or sometimes water flows out of it and it melts.
Or skies, like the clouds. I also saw it in Denver a couple of weeks ago.
Stars. Yeah, and I felt like, Barbara, I don't know what you thought, but the music that they played along with all of the projections, it was the music, I think, really that made it. I thought it was pretty moving. I went in there and was like, I don't know, this is cheesy. And ended up really kind of loving it when I left.
I have to say that I was hoping to love it, and I really was a little bit lukewarm about it. I took my granddaughters, and they really enjoyed it, and they loved being immersed in it, and I also liked that part. But I was distracted by so many people. I was distracted by the shadows on the walls. I wanted to spend more time with each one, and I think that, Sonali, you might feel that way as well, that it might taint it for you.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm not taint it, but I just don't know that you would love it as much as somebody who's not, really
familiar. There were no shadows on the wall where I was, and everybody was kind of clustered in the middle and just sort of looking up. So it wasn't like people moving around. Like you
really has to do. like with the venue, like whatever
It might
venue
be.
they have, you know.
I feel
Yeah.
like any other artist. Like I would do another artist. Like I want to do this, but I don't want to do it with Van Gogh.
They will
So
probably do it with lots of different artists, given the success of
I
it.
suspect
Yeah,
it
no
might.
kidding.
I can't imagine it having the same poignancy, but maybe.
I mean, no artist has the same poignancy. So that is exactly
That's true.
I think for me what it is. But they did what you're talking about, the moving parts. They had a film. It had some like 500 artists who had recreated his works, and they actually had an entire I think 20-minute or longer film that were stories based with entirely inside of his paintings. That came out about 4 years ago, and I've been trying to find it. It was playing in Urbana Champaign when I went to drop my son off, but it was deemed not the, or we didn't get tickets. We tried something like that, but there's an entire film of his paintings turned into moving pictures.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and it might have been the space I was in, the emotional space, to hear all the music. I had also been all over Manhattan. And so then I went in there and it was like this really air conditioned, dark, cool space where she's laughing because she was in Boston last week when it was like 90. We had 4 days of 90 the whole summer. She
and
got all 4 of them.
1% humidity, and I was just sweaty. I'm surprised I didn't slide down the cobblestones because I was so slick. I could have just went. It was
bad.
But we had fun.
Yeah.
We ate a lot of lobster.
Yeah.
It's excellent. But anyway, yeah, no, I ended up really liking it, and I didn't expect to at all. But I love that you have a totally different perspective. I think that's good. I think that's kind of what's happening with that exhibit. That there's a big dichotomy, and
And I'm going to also say, just for the record, that Van Gogh is not one of my favorite artists. I'm sorry, Sonali, but he is actually kind of pretty low on my list of painters, especially from that era. I think there are so many who are better, and I think that he gets a lot of press because of his tragic life, and it is tragic, and he is interesting, but I don't admire him as much as a painter as some people do.
Yeah, no, that works. Hey, that's what art is all about, just like books.
Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah.
No kidding. Yes.
Yeah.
Very true.
So, does anyone have, right, Amy? We're to the like the variety part of the show.
Yeah.
Products, talents, random little tidbits you would like to share. Sonali, you put your hands up.
No, I was doing the jazz hands.
Oh.
I actually do have a product, and
yes,
it's because I have 5 animals. I have hardwood floors. It is so dusty in Colorado that it's impossible to take care of the floors. And I discovered these rugs on Facebook, actually, Ruggable rugs. They're washable. They're 2-part rugs. You can just rip off the top and throw in the washing machine, and they really wash beautifully. They are so great, and they come in all these beautiful things. I mean, they're certainly not Arabian carpets on the floor, but they look great.
I
have
those so many times, and now I feel like this is the recommendation I needed to make the purchase. That's good to know that they're as good as you say they are.
So can we talk about this ripping it off, and there's a piece? So what does that look like?
There's like a plastic liner that sits on the floor. Not plastic, it's like rubbery or something. And it's kind of attached with a little claw, sort of Velcro-y feeling, and it keeps it in place. And then you just pull it off that to wash it. It also helps keep anything from going through to the floor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, nice. Okay, Amy, you need to get on that.
I do.
I just have a rabbit.
They have like Star Wars themed ones too.
They do. They are so cute.
They're really kind of fun because it's sort of that subversive, discreet. You might not know at the first glance that it's a Star Wars pattern, and then you look closely and they're like little TIE fighters picking up the pattern. So I dig that. I like that.
Cool. It's funny you bring this up today, Barbara, because I went on a cleaning spree this weekend because I'm on deadline. That's
Of course.
and I put all my wool rugs in, the smaller ones in the wash. Now I've done this before, but I think I put it on too long, and some of my actual bought in Kashmir wool rugs have gotten ripped along the sides, and I'm just heartbroken.
I don't blame you.
I'm heartbroken, but I will find a way. So I've been doing searches, and Raghabel came up a lot. Searches on, something, one of those iron-on or something edging, like new edging, so I will not throw these rugs away.
No.
Oh no.
Take them to like an upholstery place, and they could put a new edge on it or something.
Something I'm gonna
Somebody's
have.
got to be able to do that.
Yeah.
There's people.
Yeah.
There's people.
Yes, I'm gonna have to find people.
But yeah.
Or I'm going to India next week, so I'll just buy new ones.
There you go.
Wait, hold on. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I haven't seen my family in 2.5 years. So it's and I, my brain has this thing where if something is going to happen, I put it away and then not think about it. And I knew my parents. My parents usually come spend. My parents and my in-laws spend the summers with us, and so it didn't happen these past 2 years. And I thought, well, they'll come this summer, and so I was just, and then I was like, wow, it's August, and that's not going to happen because they only citizens are allowed into the country if you're coming from India, and green card holders, of course. And so it suddenly, like, it literally was this bolt that went off in my head and said they're not coming, and it's been 2.5 years, and they're old, and I have to see them. And it's this visceral thing, and within like that day, I was like, I'm going next week, and so we started finding ways to, because not all airlines are flying, and so it took some. Even now, I'm really nervous. So you all will know if I'm gone or not next week, because there's COVID tests to take and stuff to upload, and I feel like until I'm inside my parents' home, I'm kind of this is the first time in my life I'm anxious about traveling and all of that. But I'm going next week, and it was just one of those things where I'm like, I just have this thing that I just have to go.
It's good that you're going. I think it'll be okay.
I think so. I hope so. And we'll see. You everyone will know when my Instagram posts start.
I think airlines do a really, really nice job of keeping the plane in good condition and doing all the stuff they need to do.
Yeah.
And everyone has to wear their masks.
Yeah.
So it'll be good. It'll be good. I feel positive. I'm sending you good energy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Is it time? I feel like it's time.
It is time.
We're all going to go buy Ruggables and Barbara's book.
Yes.
I love Barbara's books. So for anyone who hasn't read one, they almost always have a foodie element, which, Barbara, I love that about your books.
Was this one, I'm trying to think, did this one have,
even if there's not, there's descriptions.
Yes.
The descriptions of food.
Well, I mean, I think the only really important thing there is the deli. There's a deli, and there's Reuben sandwiches, and
Yes.
she's a cook. Willow's a cook, that like for survival reasons, and she's really good at it. So
always there's an
Yes.
excellent, and the foodie heart in my soul is always happy about those. But then the good relationships and the struggling relationships and
the art, often the art. I love the whole like deep dive into an artist's mind thing that a lot of your books have, Barbara. There's just something. I mean, no matter what the art is, there's like a deeper dive into the process always.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about this new one.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming, you guys.
Thanks for having me.
I hope we'll see you again.
Good.
Thank you.
Bye. We'll see people next week. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.